Well, you know what to do. Put them in the garbage.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey and from me. Well, I am going to try to keep the tone a little bit lighter than it has been recently, because if the Queen can be resuming her royal duties, I think we don't need to be too morose, because although it is a tremendous loss to her to have lost Prince Philip, and although we are in mourning, that doesn't mean we need to be too morose, because really we should be celebrating the life of somebody who died at nearly 100, 2 weeks and 1 day short of 100, and who actually had a most amazing life. So, and of course, now that Meghan and Harry have interjected themselves into the scenario, well, of course, there is levity to spare, to put it mildly, because once Meghan, especially Meghan, gets involved, you know farcicality is her companion and is actually therefore right beside her and therefore beside us. So I will plunge right in with the very first thing is from somebody called Angela Lane. Hello, Lady C. First, me again. many E's. Says her doctor advised her not to travel to the UK. Then today, her friends are telling the media that she would have come over for the funeral, but she didn't want to be the center of attention, in huge block capitals with many exclamation marks. I am lost for polite words. This is insane. Has she no perspective on the situation? Is it a case of saying anything to grab a headline, or does her delusion extend to these ridiculous heights? Love your videos. Thank you very much, Angela Lane. Well, I think you've got it in one. It is farcical, it is ludicrous, it is delusional. This is a woman whose ego has no bounds. This is a woman who actually believes, if she says that pink is green, we are obliged to believe it. And if we don't, we will be accused of racism or other isms. Of course, it's ludicrous. I mean, why would Meghan be the center of attention? First of all, the funeral is effectively private. What's she going to do? Pop her cork in the middle of the service? If she doesn't do that, how's she going to be the center of attention? What she really is saying is she couldn't come because she knew that if she came, she would be meeting a hostile audience and receive a very hostile reception from everybody. Everybody meaning everybody who she encounters, not only the royal family, but anybody else she encounters. So, next one. I'm just going to take them one at a time because they sometimes cover pretty similar ground. Alison. In the last 2 days, we have had from one, not coming because she doesn't want to be the center of attention. Yes, we just covered that. Yeah, yes. Isn't she modest? She doesn't want to steal the thunder from Prince Philip, and she knew she would be stealing it if she came. Isn't she modest? It's like when she said that she didn't want to be on the cover of Vogue magazine because she wasn't going to be boastful like Catherine. Such modesty. Number 2, she left it up to just Harry to decide. Well, we know how that works, because, you know, in much the same way that Othello had an absolutely free will, as Iago was shoving him to destroy Desdemona with dripping poison in his ear, we have the same sort of scenario. And of course, Othello thought he was a free agent with free will, and doubtless Harry feels the same, because a clever manipulator lets you think that you're doing it all. That's a clever manipulator. And nobody's reached the heights she has without working at everything. And hasn't she just worked it? So, number 3, this is a time for healing, and she's prepared to forgive the royal family and move on. Well, that, of course, is extremely noble of her, you know, without a doubt. Mickey has come to join us because Mickey understands what a noble creature that dear sweet Megsy baby is. Can you imagine? So noble. She's going to forgive the royal family, and then it's time to move on. You talk about a vulture capitalizing upon the corpse. It's just beyond belief. I mean, this might be actually some medieval country where corpses are left to be vulturized by the vultures, and the flesh is picked off their bones. I mean, you talk about the opportunistic use of a death. I mean, it's just beyond belief. Doubtless, had the Oprah interview gone the way she hoped it would, and had she been covered in the laurels that she thought she was going to be covered in, doubtless things would have been entirely different, and she would have been extracting many, many advantages and demanding many, many concessions. But of course, because it's reverberated rather, but of course, because it's boomeranged everywhere except in certain left-wing circles in America and amongst a certain racist element in America. And you notice I do not include many people of color in America who have been vociferous in stating that they do not approve of Meghan's conduct. So she now has a new agenda. Forgiveness. She's going to forgive those who she injured. How very noble of her. Meghan, sweetie pie, didn't the priests and nuns at the school that you went to, because I went to a Catholic school and my sisters went to a Catholic school, and I think we all got the same lessons, sort of like right is right and wrong is wrong. And when you are a victim, you do not expect the perpetrator to nobly and condescendingly offer to forgive you for the harm you did to them. I mean, planet Earth or planet Markle. I mean, just beyond belief. And to stick on this one, this is a time for healing. Yes, it's a time for healing. Why, therefore, have you been grabbing more column inches, infuriating the very people you have already accused of wrongdoings that they did not perpetrate upon you? Why is it that you are making announcements through yet another set of friends who, if it bounces back adversely against you, you will deny that you set them up to it? Shades of your People magazine excursion at the expense of your father's reputation when you tried to destroy it. And you think it's time to move on? Well, I've got news for you, sweetie pie. My understanding is that everybody is going to be treating you and your rather very disturbed husband with as much consideration as they can summon up and with as much skepticism as you deserve. Nobody trusts you. Nobody's ever going to trust you again. You have shown yourself in your true colors, and people don't like what they see. It couldn't be simpler. Number 4. She's had a special bond with Prince Philip and absolutely adored him. Well, that's a joke if ever I heard one. She had a special bond with Prince Philip. Prince Philip is the one who called her the showgirl and told Harry that we step out with actresses, we don't marry them. And it's all there in my book if you want to get to the nitty-gritty and have all of the detail of that conversation. Because Harry was very careful with his grandparents to play what I think we should call the Meghan card, or maybe we should call it the Meghan Oprah card, or the Gail Meghan Oprah card. It's the race card, because that's what Harry played with his grandparents when they objected to his marriage to Meghan, not on the grounds of colour, but on the grounds of unsuitability in terms of character and personality. And she has never forgiven Prince Philip for it, hence the statement that was posted on the Archewell, mean, niggardly, nasty, very sort of onerous, let me throw the crumbs to this piece of trash, thanking him for his service as if he was a butler who had served her well. I mean, unbelievable. That's why the original statement was so ungenerous. That's why, because she knew Prince Philip did not approve of her, and she did not forgive him ever. And she was scoring a point when she had the opportunity. However, she's clever, because when he was alive, she knew that if she moved against Prince Philip or the Queen, that she would be toast. So she hasn't moved against them. She simply threw the rest of the family under the wheels of the bus. So, next one. Number 5. Doria is helping Meghan Markle through this very difficult time while just Harry is away. I'm sure she is. I'm sure she is. No better person to be taught from than from a master, or in this case, a mistress of operativeness. Doria actually has a veneer of dignity and modesty that it would behoove Meghan to adopt. But my information about Doria is that she is hardly the sort of person that I would want my children to be brought up by. Fortunately, Meghan, to a large extent, was not brought up by her. But Doria stepped in just in time to show Meghan how to work the system, and they've been working it since then, and good luck to them. Pity it has to be at the expense of the royal family, and hopefully Doria is not encouraging Meghan in the destructive path that she has been taking. Hopefully she has been trying to talk some sense into her, and this is something I must state, because I do not intend to fall foul of anybody legally. And I'm not accusing Doria of anything except being a very clever operator, and a very, very concerned mother who actually does have a degree of dignity. But Doria is complicit. Well, and Doria knows how to keep her mouth shut. And Doria knows how to let little Megsy baby work the system while she hovers in the background, being supportive. These are things that Thomas Markle, in his patent, garrulous honesty and good-heartedness, clearly didn't know how to do. Hence why he is toast. And the question ends with, and the papers publish this PRBS, several exclamation marks. What is the matter with them? My dear, the papers are there to sell papers. They are there to report upon the news. They are there to make money. It has been much more difficult for them to make money ever since the advent of the internet. And this has had a very, very detrimental effect upon the quality of all news reportage. So we now have a very tabloidesque demeanor riven throughout the press. Even the supposed upmarket organs such as the Times in London and the New York Times, to mention but two. Fortunately not with the Telegraph, which has maintained its standards, the Telegraph in England. They're there to sell papers, they're there to sensationalize, dramatize, exaggerate, report upon rubbish even when they know it's rubbish. I have said before, and I'll repeat it again, in 1992 at a restaurant on Knightsbridge called St Kenton, I was having lunch with Robert Jobson, who some of you might know. He is actually one of the nicer and better royal correspondents. And I said to Robert, how can you people publish all these lies about Diana when you know that they're lies? And he said, well, Georgie, you know, the fact of the matter is that we're not going to publish the truth, because if we do, people are going to like Diana and they're not going to want to buy the paper and read about her. So there's your answer. They know that Meghan's spinning things more than a gig. She's just spinning like a top. Do you remember the tops when we were children? Well, she's spinning like a top. She spins everything so that black becomes white. Well, white becomes black in her case, actually. Pink becomes green, good becomes bad, bad becomes good, loyalty becomes treachery, treachery becomes loyalty, just riding roughshod over the realities and flipping everything like a street vendor flipping a pancake. That's what she does, and that's what they do. And it's all about making money. It's all about making money. Don't expect the truth. You're not going to get it. What you might get is a reasonably unsensationalized account of something, but you're just as liable to get a completely sensationalized and rubbish account. So that's why the press write these things. And also, there is a difference, and I think it's important for us all to understand the difference, because I know that I'm speaking to people all over the world. The British papers are far more truthful, believe it or not. They can be far more vicious, but they are far more truthful, and they actually report far more responsibly than the American media. The American media, I go into this in my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, the difference between the way the press functions in England and the way it functions in America. In America, most newspapers, most magazines do cut and paste jobs. The PR company sends out a release, they cut it, they paste it, they put it in their paper. There is very little distilling of the news so that what is reported is actually a representation of fact. This happens less so in England, and there's a reason for it. In the United States, there is no one national newspaper that covers the whole of America and is widely read by everybody. There are such publications as the International Herald Tribune and one or two very minor publications that go nationwide, usually flotsam, jetsam, or fluff. And I will, in that number, include the National Enquirer, the People magazine, Vanity Fair, Harper's Bazaar, but by and large, if they were them, it's cut and paste. The PR people tell them what to write, and they write it because that's how they make their money. Occasionally, the National Enquirer will do a real inquisition and come up with a real scoop. You're never going to find that happening with People magazine. You're never going to find that happening with Vanity Fair. Now that darling Dominic Dunn, who was a friend of mine, is dead, you're not finding any of that anymore with Vanity Fair. And you're definitely not finding it with Harper's Bazaar. You're just not finding it. And that is the difference. Meghan and Harry have a host of PR people working around the clock to keep them in the news and to make sure that they are reported upon 2 and 3 times a week. I've said this before. I was told by one of the people who they instructed that they have instructed their agents that they need 2 to 3, preferably 3, good stories about them every week. That's why you're getting this pap. And Meghan is shameless because she believes, as did Adolf Hitler and Joseph Goebbels, that the truth is an elastic thing that can be stretched to accommodate your version of it, even when your version is really a 3-letter word beginning with L. So, next question. Beth Garrow. Oh, Megs wasn't wise. She said that she didn't think all the attention should be on her. It should be on Philip. Of course she would, my dear. She's very gracious. She's very generous. Why would she want to steal Prince Philip's thunder? I mean, she's so much grander than he was. I mean, he was only a prince, born and bred. I mean, not like her. She was in a movie. I don't think it did very well. She was in a TV show, a cable TV show. I don't think that was ever mainstream either, but you know, if she was in it, that means she was right up there with Icarus. While Prince Philip was just down there somewhere with that woman. What's her name again? Oh, Lilibet. Oh, yeah, you know, the sort of people that don't know their place. You know, the sort of people who tried to claim use of the word royal. I mean, can you imagine the nerve of these people trying to claim copyright on something that she wanted? I mean, really, who do these people think they are? Just unbelievable. Big of her, says Beth Garrow. Well, my dear, I should not have interrupted you, so I will not interrupt further. She doesn't love herself much, does she? No, she doesn't, Beth Garrow. She doesn't. She's a picture of modesty. Meg's also said that she had a special relationship because they were both outsiders. Number one, and that actually is, she might have said it, but that is complete nonsense. Prince Philip wasn't an outsider. Prince Philip was a cousin of the Queen. Prince Philip was more royal than the Queen. His mother was born at Windsor Castle. His grandmother was one of Queen Victoria's favoured granddaughters. His grandmother's two sisters, one was the Empress of Russia. The other was the Grand Duchess Serge. Prince Philip was extremely well connected. Prince Philip was the grandson of King George I of the Hellenes. He was the great nephew of the King of Denmark. One of the other brothers became King of Norway. Do we begin to get a picture that Prince Philip was definitely a royal insider and not a royal outsider? I mean, where does Meghan get off that Prince Philip was an outsider? He was certainly no outsider. I know that some of the deluded courtiers, and they were deluded, people like Tommy Lassell, wanted to portray him as an outsider. He certainly was not an outsider. He may have been not a servant of the crown the way they were servants of the crown, wishing to puff themselves up as being insiders because they were servants, mere servants of the crown. Prince Philip was a fully paid up prince with an impeccable royal lineage. One of his cousins was the Queen of Spain. Another cousin became another Queen of Spain. So he had two cousins who became Queens of Spain. I could go on and on. Prince Philip was connected to absolutely every royal family in Europe. He spent, as a little boy, many of his holidays at Constanza when his first cousin's son, King Michael of Romania, was on the Romanian throne. He spent much of his summer holidays there in Romania with his cousin King Michael, who remained a close friend all his life. Prince Philip was not an outsider. Sorry. The ignorance to make such a stupid, pretentious statement. So, to continue reading the question, no one can figure out when this special bond formed. Well, they can't because it never formed. She was to Sandringham for a short time, twice, and the Queen and Prince Philip were at the wedding. That's about it. Well, to give her her due, the Queen has always been, as was Prince Philip, fond of all of their family. Prince Philip was very family orientated. Because he had no family of his own after the age of 10 and was farmed out to various relations. Family meant a great deal to him, and this is one of the attractions that Lilibet had, because she came from a close family, and although Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, did not drink the same brand of tea, they were both very committed to having close family relations. Even if they were not always smooth sailing, they were always together, so to speak. Both the Queen and Prince Philip did keep in touch with all of their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. In my next video, I will go into his relations with the family in greater depth. Suffice it to say at this point that they interacted with Harry and Meghan to the extent that they were capable of. And yes, Beth Garrow, you're right. Where Prince Philip was concerned, it wasn't that much. He didn't particularly care for Meghan. He knew what she was from the word go. He was polite. He was welcoming. He was grand paternal. She knew that he did not want her in the family. And the reason why he didn't want her in the family was that he spotted what she was, and that he, rather like his daughter, Princess Anne, saw her coming. Meghan can dupe the unsophisticates of Canada and the second and third tier operators of Hollywood and the premier operators of Hollywood when it suits them. Meghan can't fool truly sophisticated Britishers and Europeans. We've all seen it 1,000 times. We know the difference between a sheep and a goat. It's as simple as that. And you can rest assured that Princess Anne and Prince Philip would have been as one where Meghan was concerned from the word go. And Prince Philip is the one who articulated his desire that Harry should not marry Meghan. So, I think maybe things begin to fall into place and we begin to get a picture as to why there was that mean and niggardly is the only word that I would use. And to those of you who don't know what it means, look it up. It has nothing to do with race, and it is a word that's much older than race, and it's the word that is appropriate for this situation, and I am going to use it because it is the word to use. You talk about damning with faint praise. I mean, you know, but people have noticed it and commented upon it. So, next question. Dave Woods, question for Lady C. Dear Lady C, you have spoken at length about your experiences with a narcissistic personality. I was looking up the definition of a psychopath, and it seems to apply to you know who. I wonder who that is, Dave Woods. No idea. I'm sure none of us will have any idea who you're speaking about, but we will blunder on. I would appreciate your perspective. Thank you, and I am a great fan. I'm suspicious of Harry's motives for coming to his grandfather's funeral. I wouldn't put it past him to try to get his grandmother alone, take advantage of her sorrow to persuade her to restore his military titles. I hope the family keeps him at a proper distance and makes sure he is on a plane as soon as the funeral is over. Let's wait and see. I can tell you something. Once you have been betrayed by a loved one, and I now speak from personal experience, you never get over it. You never get over it. Even when you tell yourself you're going to give them a second and a third chance, and even at the very moment that you're lowering your guard, they are waiting till the opportunity arises for them to get another bite of your cherry. That's what people like that do. What is a psychopath? Well, I mean, there are many programs on the internet on psychopathy from some really rather good psychologists. I would refer you to them. But shorthand, a psychopath is basically somebody who has no conscience whatsoever, and also a psychopath can never resist doing the one thing that they know they're not supposed to. They refuse to be contained by authority or by rules. I know this because a friend of mine, who is one of the top psychiatrists in this country specializing in psychopathy, and who was for some time one of the top guys at one of the top hospitals in this prisons, actually. It's a prison as well as a hospital for the criminally insane. He used to say about he'd met very few true psychopaths. I mean, it's a word that's used rather more freely than it deserves to be used, but they have no empathy whatsoever. And he has regaled us here while staying here for the weekend about some of his experiences with some of the criminally insane, and they don't know the difference between right and wrong. And that one of them, who was a murderer, he knew he was not supposed to press a certain button, and he said he could always tell that he was just dying to press the button, and he was just waiting to see as and when he would press the button, because the one thing you cannot tell a psychopath is no. If you try to stop them, that doesn't avert them. That drives them to ever greater determination. So, I mean, very determined people are called psychopaths when in fact they're technically not psychopaths, but they would have psychopathic characteristics. Sociopath and psychopath are more or less interchangeable nowadays. And, you know, sociopaths, again, one in every 25 people is a sociopath. So, I mean, that doesn't quite square up with what this friend of mine, who I will not name to maintain discretion, says, because he says he's met very few true psychopaths in his life. And as I said, his specialty is the criminally insane. But I think the word is used to describe people who are unscrupulous. And indeed, if you study psychopathy, it started out being known as the disease of the unscrupulous. People who have no scruples are what you and I would call a psychopath. Last question. Copper Pot Adventures Candle. Oh, some of these names just kill you. Lady C, thank you for all your videos. It's a sad situation watching what Harry and that mad woman are doing to his poor family. It's so frustrating. My question is, do you think maybe dear Prince Philip would have written a letter to Harry to tell him what he really thought of the situation? I don't see a good end to this at all. No, I don't see a good end to this at all either. I see trouble, trouble, more trouble, and even more trouble. I see great unhappiness. As I have pointed out before, I have lived with people like this. I know the turmoil. It is like being on a rough sea in a ship without stabilizers. It's another analogy. It's like having an egg beater in your brain. And the closer you are to the person, is the harder it is to actually make sense of what is going on and to decipher the reality of what is going on. Because people like that will go out of their way to fox you, to set you off their scent. That's how they prevail. Do I think Prince Philip wrote a letter? I am almost 100% sure that he did not, because of what I have heard. Prince Philip pretty much thought, oh, I'm not going to go there. This is something I don't want to get involved with. He tried with Harry to avert the marriage. It didn't work. Harry played the race card in the most appalling fashion. After that, he washed his hands. He basically said, you know, it's his life. If he's going to make a mess of it, there's nothing I can do about it. I've tried. By this stage, Prince Philip knew you can take a horse to the water, but you can't force it to drink. You can try your best to avert disaster, but if people are determined to embrace it, there is nothing you can do but accept it. And one of the qualities that the Queen and Prince Philip both have in common is a degree of acceptance that is truly remarkable. And that is why they have had the remarkable lives and the remarkably long and successful lives that they have had. Because they have understood when to accept and when to try to make a difference. And if you can't make a difference, just accept it and move on. So no, Prince Philip also learnt from the mistake of writing to Diana that there is no point when you are dealing with people who are irrational, writing to try to get them back to reason. And so no, I'm pretty sure he wrote no such letter. It would be nice that he had, and if he had, it would be nice if Meghan can share it with the world. But I'm pretty sure she's not going to do that either, because it wouldn't reflect well upon her. but I'm pretty sure he didn't write any such letter. And on that note, I will say thank you very much. Please keep the questions coming in the comment section. And if you have enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, and press the notification bell. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.